Hello, beautiful beings. Daneaya Z here. It is June 9th, 2021. I hope you guys are all well. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of yours. It is truly a gift, and I am so very grateful. Before I dive in and chat about when I quit smoking pot, touching on that gratitude, I was talking to a dear friend of mine who has just started a new thing where she gets to take care of seniors, and she was telling me how much of a blessing it is to be of service. And that resonates with me so well, because I believe that when we can show up in a place of service, and I don't mean selfless service, I mean like where it truly comes from your heart, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be a janitor, you could be, in retail, you could do anything. When we come from a grateful heart, it changes the whole dynamic of it, and it's truly a gift to be of service. And I am so very grateful to be able to show up and be of service. So thank you, just thank you. Okay, so switching gears, chatting about when I quit smoking pot. So one little thing I want to drop in there is yesterday when I talked about when I quit smoking, one of the things that I used to do is I have a very, very, very close, dear, one of my bestest friends, and we've been besties for, gosh, over 20 years. I'm really lucky. I have a couple of those women in my life. But anyways, she was my smoking and drinking buddy. So what I would do is I would buy her cigarettes, and I would stop at her house on my way home from work, and I would smoke her cigarettes, and then I would leave. But I wasn't really smoking her cigarettes. I was smoking my cigarettes, but that way I didn't feel bad about bumming her smokes. So I have to laugh at myself whenever I remember that. But now weed is a little bit of a different story. And the reason for that is because my relationship with weed was different. So if you guys remember when I talked about when I started, how I felt held, and I felt relaxed, and I felt warm. And another thing that it did for me is it took the edge off. So what I've learned that the part of our brain that lights up when we're in physical pain is the same part of our brain that lights up when we're in emotional pain. And so when we use something, when there's something, whether it's internal or external, an activity, it could be anything. It could be drugs, alcohol, sex, your phone, shopping, whatever. It soothes that part of our brain. I mean, it does other things, but it soothes that part of our brain that's in pain. So it makes the pain go away. And for me, smoking pot took away pain that I didn't know I had. Now, I'm diving deep into trauma. I'm learning a lot about trauma. And it's changing a lot of things, but it's also bringing a lot of awareness to me in my own story and my own pain that I had growing up. So I didn't know that it took the edge off the pain until I stopped doing it and I got to go through that pain, and that was really uncomfortable. So that's why I think I kept the pot habit for quite a bit longer than I kept the smoking, right? It was when I was ready to quit smoking, I was just ready. I just done. Yeah, I had my moments where I was kind of a hot mess, but I was done. That was it. And now smoking weed, that was a little bit of a different story. I never really thought that I would give up weed. I remember, thinking that I was gonna smoke dope forever. And as I got older and I learned more, and I not even got older and learned more, as I unwound my story, as I began to really sit with and unwind my own story and heal those parts of me that were in pain, I came to a place where I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wasn't proud of the fact that I I was a stoner, and it really took away from my kids. And again, please remember, this is my story and this is my journey, and it's going to be different than yours, and that's okay. So, you know, maybe parts of it resonate, and keep those ones and take them with you. And if they don't resonate, just drop them and let them go. It really is that easy. But as I began to heal my own wounds, I realized that I was numbing myself and that I was just covering it up. And there came a moment where I wanted this more than I wanted that. And it's only in those moments will we make a shift. And that's it. So, you know, honor where you are, wherever you are, and trust that when your comfort zone gets so bloody uncomfortable, that is the only time you're going to make a move. That's it. So I had hit a place where, you know, I'd quit every once in a while here and there, but never anything substantial, never anything long term. And as I started to learn more about energy medicine and more about the mind and things like that, and my own story, I just got to a space where I just didn't want to do it anymore. And that was really hard. It was hard because it required me to show up for me in a way that I'd never shown up for me before. It required me to sit with my pain. It required me to sit with my pain. You know, I remember when my oldest child was born, and I remember clear as a bell, rocking and patting, right? Just like this. And I remember saying to my oldest, you know, I promise you that I will do everything in my power so that you have a higher self-esteem than I did at 16 years old, so that you make better choices. And it was such a heartfelt, moving promise, right? It truly came from my heart. And little did I know that the only way I could do that was to do that. And so when we choose to use a substance, when we choose to use anything, it could even be busyness, to avoid sitting in our pain and airing out our wounds, or whatever you want to call it, whatever metaphor you want to use, we can't rise past it. We can't increase our self-esteem. So if I wanted my kids to have a higher self-esteem than I did, I had to do that. I had to show up for them in that way. And I didn't understand that when I made the promise. It wasn't until quite a while later I went, oh, I get it, you know. But anyways, so when I sat down smoking pot, it was, I think it's about 4 years ago, like set it down for good. I had to sit in a lot of discomfort. I had to learn how to be still. I had to accept the fact that I even had emotions, because I had spent my whole life stuffing those emotions down because it wasn't safe for me to feel them. It wasn't okay for me to be angry or upset or sad or, you know, anything other than what I deemed to be happy. And, you know, and that's not my caregiver's, that's not my mom's fault. She came from her wounds. And so you can only come from where you're at. So my mom came from her wounds, and I came from my wounds, and my kids will come from their wounds, and on and on and on. But when I set it down, I really got to dive in deep. I got to dive in really deep. I had an incredible support. You know, I mentioned that I had attended a spiritual function, and I wanted to become a different part of that spiritual function. I wanted to be on what was called the ceremony team. And in order for me to do that, I had to be, my vessel had to be clean and clear. And I wanted that more than I wanted to keep getting high. So I got to sit in my shit. And I will always remember when I realized that I was a sensitive person, when I was an emotional being. And it's like, you know, I went my whole life all the way over here on this end of the pendulum, not feeling, or what I thought was not feeling. I've learned since then that stuffing all that emotion down and all those things down really kind of made me prickly. And for those of you that knew me at that moment in life, I'm sorry, I didn't know any better, right? I really didn't. And so as that vessel opened up, as I opened up, I swung all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and it was just like, one of these. And then I've come back and I find my middle. And in that middle, I've learned about the pause. I've learned how to feel it. I've learned how to honor it. I've learned how to be grateful for it. I've learned from it. Even on day 3 on this series where it was so uncomfortable for me to, I didn't know I still had that pain in there. I just sat with it. When I ended the video, I sat with it and I allowed it to be there, and I thanked it and I sent it love, and I asked what I could learn, and I forgave myself. And that happened like that. Whereas, 4 years ago, it didn't happen that way. It wasn't that way at all. And so I've also learned that in those extremes, when we go from one extreme over here and the pendulum has to come all the way over here, I've learned that the reason that we do that is so that we don't get sucked back in over there. And that softened things for me. So learning how to feel my feelings, understanding that an emotion is nothing but energy in motion, it is going to wash over me and it will pass when I let it. And that was the key thing, when I let it. So it was also an interesting thing that I learned when I quit smoking cigarettes, but I still smoked pot. I would smoke pot like it was a cigarette. I remember once sitting on my back step, the kids were with their dad, and I was smoking a joint like it was a cigarette. And I went, wow, what a waste of weed, for starters. And isn't that interesting? Even in that space, I could still observe my behavior. And so when I quit smoking weed, I realized it was smoking. It was that act of smoking, not necessarily what I was smoking. It was the act of smoking that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I don't know why. I haven't sat with that and dove into it. I don't know if I need to. Some parts of our story we don't really need to know, but I don't think I need to know that one. Maybe one day. Maybe that's something that'll come out of this series. I don't know. But anyways, I've been nattering at you guys here for about 12 minutes, and thank you. So that was when I quit smoking weed 4 years ago, at least 4 years ago. I gotta say, I love that I don't quite remember exactly how long it's been, because that means I won't go back. At least that's a belief system that I subscribe to, and it works great for me. And if anybody wants to know more about what I do or my story or how what I can do helps you, please let me know. I would love to help you navigate your story and unwind your stuff so that you can have a connection back to yourself. I've learned that, and this is so cool because people say, what do you specialize in? And I have to say, I specialize in coming back into yourself, creating that connection to yourself. And I've learned that trauma causes a lack of connection to yourself. And trauma is not necessarily the traumatic event, although whatever the traumatic event is, in no way, shape, or form is that getting taken away from. It's what happens after. It's not having anybody, not having the support that you need to navigate those feelings that you have no idea what to do with, not having that your core needs met, those needs of loving and nurturing and caring and compassion. And as we heal those wounds, we get to come back into our own self, and we get to create that connection for ourselves. And as we do that, the more free we become, and the more empowered we become. So anyways, that's what I get to say to you guys today. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. If there's anything you guys want to know or want me to chat about, please comment below, send me a message, shoot me an email, send me a text, whatever. Have a beautiful, blessed day. I love you all so very much. Mwah. Bye, guys.